happy every. Okay, so I'm just gonna bring out an interesting idea. So Purim, we get drunk. Did anyone's family members get drunk? Okay. No. Okay. They all had a very good time. I can tell you that much. Okay. So it's interesting. In the Torah, it tells you there's three ways. This is a good thing. Like if anyone is trying to discover the real personality of someone, like, when someone's dating, okay, it's not a bad idea when you're dating. There's three ways to tell who you really are as a person, at least for, I mean, I think maybe it's men and women, but generally I think it's referring to men. Does anybody know what the three ways to really know where, like, to really, like, to really see the person's personality? Where do you see it revealed? Yes, excellent. Okay, so kiso, which is his pocket. Like, in other words, you're on a date and the guy takes you out and he goes, "Oh, would you like a drink?" And you say, "Yeah, I'd like Coke." And he goes, "Well, what's wrong with water?" Okay. All right. Then red flag. Okay. All right. Because he could be cheap. All right. So you want to know. So from his pocket, you could tell a person. You could tell a person when they get angry and how they get angry. Like, I really admired someone. I once set like a boy and girl up, very, very nice. And I was so happy for her. Like, it wasn't always so easy for her to, get a date. So I was so happy she got a date. She called me up. She was on the date, one date, and she said, "I'm not going out with him again." And I said, "Why?" Because she said the way he drives, like the road rage was okay. Like, in the car and like, what's with this guy? Did you ever in the car with those types of people? It's really not the best. Okay, so what's the indicator there? Like somebody who's like honking and they're all like
hot-headed.
What is it?
Hot-headed.
Hot-headed. And what else?
Irritable. Impatient.
Impatient. Okay, like she was bright. I said to her, "You know what? You're right. That's Kiso Caso. He's getting so angry. You're on a dime. You're flaring up. You're so mad. You have to be in control. Like, what is this? You cut me off. Why is the light red? Why is it like, those things drive me crazy."
As if it's the gava, like people
Yes,
owe you.
it is gava. It is gava. There's no doubt about it. Okay. And then when you're drunk, because what happens when a person is drunk?
They just have no control.
Yes, it's loose
inhibitions.
Yes, loose lips can sink ships. Okay. So it's an interesting idea. So in other words, there are realities, there are times, there are situations that you have to realize in life make you more vulnerable. Okay, they make you more, there's more of a chance that you may slip up under these circumstances. So when you look at the Jewish people, like, people really ask that question, like, how in the world, and it really is a serious question, could the Jewish people have made that golden calf? Like, it was such a number one mistake that the Torah tells you, like, they really should have been wiped out. Okay. And we will understand in a minute why God didn't wipe them out. But they say that the punishment, sort of the consequence of what they did at that point in time, is still felt today. It's still felt today. So it's just an interesting idea. And then you can sometimes ask yourself that question a number of times. Like the next, like, another number one sin, which is very hard to understand. First of all, let's go back for a minute to the Chet HaEgel. Why is it so hard to understand? Because they had just seen God. Okay, like God really literally spoke to them. I'll say they just heard him. Okay, they literally just heard God. Like, that's crazy. Okay, they were just taken out of Egypt, right? They were just taken out of Egypt. Maybe maybe the whole thing is over a couple months. Okay, we're not talking, years. They got used to this story. God became something they took for granted. You're talking like you just got out. You just saw the world shake. The idea of the bringing down of the Torah changed the destiny of history for the entire world. Okay, became the foundation of the three major religions in the world. It was so real. It was so true. It's the bit of truth in every religion. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's just like a crazy idea. Like, what happened? And the same thing, like, imagine in the Garden of Eden, right? You're the very first human being created. Like whoever used to read this book, it's a kid's book. A Dr. Seuss. Are you my mommy? Did anybody ever read this?
Yeah.
Where the bird like falls out of the tree, right? And then he's like, wait a minute. He doesn't remember who his mother is. Like he goes up to a cow, like, are you my mommy? So can you imagine Adam Arishon opens his eyes and it's God, okay? Like, are you my mommy? You know what I mean? Like, right? Like, okay, it's right in front of your face. Like I put you in this beautiful garden and everything is hunky-dory and amazing. And what happens?
Blow it.
They blow it. Okay. So it's like such an interesting, then even the very first murder on earth, which is like so sad whenever I think about this, like the Cain and Hevel story, very first murder, it's two brothers, right? They both gave a sacrifice to the Almighty. One gives sheep, one gives, the vegetables, the produce, and they end up murdering each other. Like, what is going on? Like, how is it that we can blow it so bad? Okay. So we got to find like a common denominator that's running through the story. There's something going on here, right? And it's a circumstance, and that's what we have to see. Okay, so let's just think about the Adam and the Adam and Eve story. Okay, how was it that they made that mistake? All right, so you've always got this test. God is always sort of testing man. So what does that mean, testing man? He wants to bring out the best in every one of us, right? It's hard because, like when you were younger and you were in school, the teacher said you have a test. If you went to the same school me and Chaya went to, you have a test. The girls went like this. No! I don't know what it was like in South Africa. Could be when they said you have a test, you went, okay, and started writing down the date. Not in our school. Okay. Like, why do we have to have a test? Okay. So why do we have to have a test? Because the test is really for your sake. It's not really so much for the teacher's sake. It really is for your sake. What's the point? To integrate the information, to really learn, to see if you know it. Can you use it? Will this help you in life? So this is what God is doing with us. He's saying, you know what? This little game of life is we're in partnership. We are going to help create you. Right? Nasa Adam. We're going to help create you to be the best you can be. And in order to do that, you're going to need challenges. That's just the way it goes, right? Rabbeinu Tam tells us this is the world of challenges. That's all. And that challenges really make you reach the top. Okay. So Hashem says, I'm going to give you a little challenge. So here they are. They're in the Garden of Eden. Everything seems so amazing. And who comes along?
The snake.
The snake. So it's an interesting kind of a being that we can't 100% clarify because it was like a snake on like standing up. It's an interesting creature. So this creature really represents the Yetzer Hara, okay, what we call the evil inclination. There's two parts of us, body and soul, right? Evil inclination, Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara, and they're always like, they're in conflict, right? One wants to be godly and one wants to be like a body. Okay, one is the soul, one is the body. They're very contradictory. They're very different understandings of what pleasure is. Okay, so it's an interest. You're always fighting. Like somebody told me they had like a hip replacement. Okay, so they needed to learn to exercise and do this and that. So the physiotherapist told them you need to buy an elliptical. Okay, so they bought an elliptical, and they're telling them you need to use the elliptical. Like to buy the elliptical, people will go out, buy it, put it in the house, and then what happens?
Leave it there.
Yeah, leave it there. And then usually you hang your clothes on it, you know what I mean? And you do this kind of stuff. And then you're like, ah. So she said, the physio told her to buy the elliptical and put it next to her desk. Okay, so where she works in her office, right next to it is the elliptical. And then she said, all you have to do is go on it even 3 times a day, just for even 3 minutes. The lowest level, just to, start yourself up after this operation, 3 minutes. So she's in with me today, and she says to me, She has never done it once. Okay. So you couldn't get the elliptical closer. You couldn't get it in a more comfortable place. She just can't get herself to do it. Just, you know what I'm saying? There is this part of us, this body part that is just so, doesn't want a challenge. It just wants to sit. It doesn't want to do anything. Okay. So now the Nachash comes around and he goes up to Chava, and the Torah tells you that he really wanted to seduce Chava. Chava is very beautiful. You can imagine the most perfect, beautiful woman. And he wants to seduce Chava. So he's trying to trick her. So what does he want her to do? He wants her to eat from that Eitz Hadas. Okay? He wants her to eat from that tree of knowledge. So what did he do? Does anybody remember? How did he get her to do it?
I think he just asked her first just to touch the
Yeah. He says to her, what did God tell you about this tree? Right? Like, oh, I feel so bad for you. You can't eat from any trees. That's what he's smart. She goes, no, what are you talking about? We can eat from oh, you can eat from all the trees. No, we can't touch or eat. That's what happened. She said, we can't touch or eat from the tree. The truth was they could touch it. But Adam Harishon, her husband, wanted to be really super careful. So he said, don't touch it or don't eat it. So this Nachash bumps her, right? And now she trips and she touches this tree. Now, first of all, when you trip, how do you feel?
Out of it.
Out of it. Excellent. You're already disoriented, right? You're already a little more vulnerable. You're already, do you know what I mean? So she trips, she touches it. And then what happens?
It says nothing happens. See?
Nothing happens. But what was her expectation?
That something bad would have happened to her.
She would die.
God said, you're going to die if you eat from the tree. It's the worst thing you could do. Like, what's going on? Nothing happened. So now where am I? I'm flustered.
Try eating it.
But my mind, where am I? I'm like, I was knocked off my feet. I'm flustered. I'm what? Like, what's going on? I'm not clear, right? When you're not sure about what's going on and you're not clear and you have these opinions flying in your head, you are much more what? Vulnerable. Okay? So that's why we say over Purim, right? The whole story of Amalek, right? Because Amalek, its gematria, the numerical value of every Hebrew letter in the word Amalek is equal to the word Safek, which means doubt. Right? Anybody here? Like, I'm trying to figure out with my son is kind of like they're getting married. Mitzvah. My son got engaged. You all know. Okay, so my son got engaged, and we're like, should we make a vort? And shouldn't we make a vort? And when should the vort be? Blah blah blah. And this is funny because he's the last one in the line, Baruch Hashem. So every kid feels like they're the parent. You know what I mean? Like all my older kids are calling it. No, you have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. You have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. What's happening to me?
You're all confused.
I'm all confused. I can't make a decision. Do you know what I mean? Because one kid is giving me this advice, one gives you that advice. Once you're in a state of confusion, you are a lot more vulnerable. So she was vulnerable. She was in a state of confusion. And now he's feeding her all this information that would just be the easy way out. Like, you know what? Just forget it. Look, you're not going to die. Nothing happened. Look, God is just, starts talking really, it's Lashon Hara. He was the first one to slander. The first time you hear Lashon Hara is then. When he says it's God, he didn't want you to eat from it. It was like, he doesn't want you to be as powerful as he is. And now she's like, and then she eats it. Okay? Now she ate it. Now she's really afraid. Uh-oh, maybe now I really will die, right? So what does she do? She panics. Oh my gosh, if I die, then that's going to leave Adam Arishon all alone and he's going to pick up some new girl. He's got to die too. Like if I go down, he goes down. That's what happens, right? You're flustered, you're confused, you lost your footing, you're vulnerable. Now you can make mistakes. And everything starts to collapse. So with Cain and Hevel, right, the two brothers, a very similar story, right? So does anybody know how the story goes? So Cain is thinking, you know what, it would be nice to be grateful to God. Like, why don't I give him a thank you? So, there's all kinds of thank yous. You ever get these kind, like, yeah, thanks, and then there's thank you. I'm so appreciative. And this was so amazing. And and there's like, thanks. So he figures, you know what, he's going to give God a thanks. No big deal. I'll just give him from the worst produce that I have. You know what I mean? Like this stuff that anyway I was going to throw out. Okay. And I'll say, here, God, thanks. All right. So now Hevel sees this and he goes, what a beautiful idea to thank God. That's an amazing idea. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to bring from the finest and the best. Okay. I'm going to bring from the finest and the best. So I'm going to bring my finest, fattest, most beautiful sheep. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to give that to God. And what does God do? He says, you know what, Hevel? Your korban, what you wanted to give me, is such a beautiful gift. I'll take it. But you, Hevel, I don't know if I need like rotten tomatoes. Okay, so I guess you could keep it. Okay, so now what happens? Now Cain's like, what? Right? And it says in the Chumash that his face falls and he gets very angry. What was he so angry about? What's he angry about?
Jealousy.
Jealous.
Say that again? Yeah, he's jealous.
Jealousy.
Yeah.
Jealous. This korban
It was
wasn't.
my idea. I'm the one who did it first, and he's getting all the credit. So the Torah says that Hashem says to him, relax, chill out. You don't have to be depressed. It's going to be okay. Just try.
Again.
Yeah. But when you're very flustered and you're very angry and you're feeling a lot of jealousy, you're knocked off your feet. Your equilibrium isn't there. You're not standing on 2 feet. And you make grave mistakes. And he went over to Havel and he starts talking to him and he says, this is so unfair and I don't know why God did this to me. And Havel says to Cain, you know what? You know what happened? You really didn't bring the best. You know what I mean? You really didn't. They couldn't hear it. And he lost himself. He lost himself in the anger. He lost himself in the jealousy. And he ended up like literally fighting and literally killing. Like an unbelievable story, right? So what are we learning from here? So let's just take a look at this. So Adam Rishon, you're off your game. When you trip up, you start falling. What do you have to do? You kind of have to pick yourself up right then and there. So the Chet HaEgel, it is a very interesting thing. It's a beautiful idea. It says when it talks about in the Torah, when it talks about the Jewish people, our name is B'nai Yisroel. Another way that they will refer to us in the Torah is Am, meaning nation. Ha'am, the nation. So it says like this, when the Jewish people were leaving Egypt, not only did Jewish people come out, there were some other people who joined. Does anybody know what they're called? The Arab
Rav.
Yes, excellent. The Arab Rav. There's a group of non-Jews, Egyptians, okay, people who lived in Egypt, who said, wow, look at this. You know what I mean? Look at this. Look at these incredible plagues. Look at this incredible stuff. We want to be part of the Jewish nation. God said to Moshe, not a good idea. Don't take these people with you. This will end up costing the Jewish people a lot. And Moshe said, but what do you mean? They're so sincere. This is why when somebody says they want to convert to Judaism, we have to really check it out. Unfortunately, I know myself personally and my husband, we've had so many people who, like, we were burned by. People who were not and said they really want to be, and then they're converted, and then
They leave.
they leave.
You never see them again.
Never see them again. And it's really scary and really not great for the Jewish people because those people, after they've converted, even if you want to leave, too late. You are a Jew. Do you know what I mean? And it impacts our nation. So when this happened so many thousands of years ago, God said to Moshe, don't take these people. And he said, no, he came to their defense. It's going to be amazing. We have to take them. So Hashem said, these people are going to be called Ha'am, the nation. Whose nation? Yours. Now, these people you're going to have to stay on top of. So these people were very much connected to Moshe. That was their ultimate connection here. They were really like, they came along for the show knowing that there was this person, Moshe, who took them out, who went to bat for them, right? So when they got to Har Sinai, and everyone said, in 40 days, Moshe will come back. So Moshe climbs up the mountain, and guess what? They counted that as day one. That wasn't day one. Okay, so they counted that as day one. Let me just put this here. They counted that as day one, right? And what goes on? Now they're off. Okay, so now you're expecting, imagine Erev Rav. To them, Moshe is everything, right? Because he's the one who, went to bat for them. Okay, so now in your mind, it's day 40, but it really is only day 39. So now for some people, that's going to knock them off their feet, right? What did we say? Something happens, you're not patient, you're not this, you get full of angst. So these Erev Rav, they're going crazy. It's the 40th day. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Right? Now, when you're in a room with people who start doing that, what happens to you? What happens to you when that happens?
Get frazzled.
You get frazzled. So I do
You
want
just
you to
want to tell them something to leave you alone.
Perfect. Okay, so Chaya, perfect. Because I think it's very important for us to realize something. We carry an energy. Do you know that? And some people are highly sensitive to other people's energy. But we carry an energy. And if people are sending you this big flustered energy, you have to be very careful because it's very easy for you to do what?
Get caught up in it.
Yes. And for you to accept that incredible energy and for the whole room to fill with that energy. You know, like how people can all panic? God forbid, like you crazy stories. Even Nebuch, what happened years ago when there was that stampede on Lag BaOmer and 40 people were killed. Yeah. Walmart, one time a guy opened the door on Walmart and everybody was so crazy on Black Friday, they literally trampled him. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to realize these energies can bring on the worst of the worst. So here's the Erev Rav freaking out. Freaking out. We can't be without Moshe. We need something else instead of Moshe. We can't do this. And what did they want? They said, we're going to create a golden calf. We're going to create another, reality besides Moshe. We got to put in a substitute. And the Jewish people are like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And Aaron's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And everybody's like losing it. So Aaron tries to calm the crowd down. And he said, you know what? I got to send these people to people who are on 2 feet. So I'm going to send them to the Jewish women. And what does he recommend? What does he recommend? I just have to answer one little thing here, but what does he recommend?
What to bring their gold?
Yes, to bring their gold. And where should they go get the gold?
From their wives.
From their wives. What was the reason? So that they would calm down and they would have time. And when they would start to ask the wives, if you take a look in the story of the Jews in the 40 years of the wilderness, the women are not participating in this stuff. They're not letting themselves get flustered. They're staying on 2 feet. And they are not giving to the golden calf. And they are not believing the spies. And they are not believing they'll never get out of Egypt. They're staying firm on their 2 feet and their beliefs in God. So Aaron says, go to your wives. Ask your wives for the jewelry. See what they're going to say. Think this over. So you know what? They go to the wives. And what do the wives say? Stop. Oh. And you know what they say? We don't need your jewelry. We'll use our own stuff. Okay. So what's going on? it's still like flustered and in a fury and in all this kind of stuff, right? Things are still all in panic mode. And then what do? They do the sin of the Chet HaEgel. And God says to Moshe, go down now. It's Ha'am, your nation. Go see what your nation did, because your nation is what turned this whole mess. And many times throughout the story, it's the Erev Rav. It's the Erev Rav. It's not the Jewish. Remember when the Jewish people are like, they're really hungry and they're really thirsty and they're really upset. And they go, we want to go back to Egypt. We remember the cucumbers and the watermelons and the garlic. The Jews were slaves. They only remembered the matzah. But the Erev Rav remembered. Do you see what's going on here? So this is such an important kind of reality. We have to realize that people and circumstances can take us into places that we don't want to be. You're going to let your emotions run with it, then they're going to run you off the cliff. So if you take a look, it's very interesting. If you look at the word sheker, the letter shin kuf resh, they're only standing on one leg. Okay? If you look at the word MS, it's 2 feet planted in the ground. Each one of those letters have 2 feet planted in the ground. And that's what we have to understand. Like when you're finding yourself, this idea when people say, you know, leave the room or calm down or take a breath or this or that, it's so important. There's this concept called halt. Okay, halt means to stop. So they say, when should you stop? When you feel halt, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Those 4 feelings, those 4 emotions are going to set the part of your brain, the amygdala, off. It's going to set it off. And it's going to, oh, what do I need? I need something. I need something. I need something. Slow it down, because if you're in this kind of mode and you're talking to people or you're making a decision, it's going to be wrong. I'm going to tell you that now. So I had one son, a really cute son, and he used to come home from yeshiva. I used to want to know how his day went, okay? So I used to say, you know, whatever, I'm going to make up a name, like Chaim, how was your day? How was your day? He would say, Ma, let me eat first, and then I can answer.
At least he told you.
Which was very smart, because at first I couldn't understand, like, why wouldn't he answer? Like, I'd say to him, say something. Just let me eat. Okay, let me eat. Let me calm myself. Then I can, you know, do what's right. So what happened even in the story of Purim, when the Jews messed up with going to Achashverosh's party, it was also the same idea. Achashverosh, what was he making a party for? What was he making a party for? Does anybody really know? He was making the party to celebrate the fact that God was not taking the Jews back after 70 years. Okay, the point was the Jewish people were sent into Gullus. That very first Gullus, like, you know, we look at it and we go, it was such a short Gullus, but you have to realize the devastation was incredible. I mean, imagine living with a Beis Hamikdash. Imagine living on that kind of a plane, you know what I mean? With such clarity and God, and like, and they didn't believe it. I'm going to be honest. Like, all of the prophets told them, you are going to be exiled. And all the Jews were like, God would never do that to us. It was like, wasn't fathomable. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was not in their Weltanschauung at all. There's no way he's not going to forgive us. There's no way. Like, they could not believe it, because it was God's home. Like it's like God cutting his nose to spite his face. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so they couldn't, that was the way they viewed it. They couldn't believe it. They didn't realize, but God said, I can't be in a world that's like this. If you're going to go so off, I'm not invited here. I'm not going to stay. And it was just unbelievable for them. So then God said to them, listen, calm down. You're going, but you're going to be gone for 70 years. Okay, so now imagine, like, if we were told, that's why in some ways they tell you, you know, don't do any calculations for when Mashiach is. But imagine if I told you that 100%, okay, The prophets said, and again, what was the problem here? A miscounting of the years. Okay. So I'm going to tell you, the prophets said that, as far as as far as we understand, I'm going to come up with a million calculations. This Pesach, you are going to open the door, right, for Eliyahu Navi, and he's taking us home. And we're convinced. Okay. We're all convinced. Nobody's going, no, that's not going to happen. We're really convinced. Okay. And now it doesn't happen. How are you going to feel? How are you going to feel?
Disappointed, angry.
All those feelings. It's going to be such an emotional response. It'll be a terrible emotional response. So Mordecai is telling them, chill out. It's going to be okay. We're going to get back there, but it's not yet. And you can't go to that party to celebrate the fact, do you know what I mean? That God did not redeem the Jewish people, right? And Achashverosh went out of his way. He served things in the vessels of the temple, and he got dressed as the Kohen Gadol. Do you know what I mean? So Torah tells you, like, you can't do this. And they're like, no, it's political suicide. And now that God's not taking us out, this is where we're going to have to be. And you can just see, no, like the panic and the angst and the this. I kind of feel we live a little bit in times like this, to be honest. I really do. Do you know what I mean? Like what goes on in Israel and back and forth and blah, and the whole world and everybody and their crazy opinions. And we don't know what's going on. And this one is this and this one is, it's like, right? And when you're in that exasperated state, that's when it's the hardest to be able to have clarity, to hang on tight, and to make a clear decision. It's so difficult. That's when you have to know when you're in these kinds of circumstances, you feel that blood pressure going up, blah, 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 blah. You're with someone. The best thing you could do is say, you know what? I think it's better for all of us if we just kind of stop the conversation right here and right now. And we'll resume. Like it's called TO, timeout. Right? They say the same thing like if you're having a really bad argument with your husband, right? Or you're having bad arguments that you see you're both one person's about to go, I'm not talking to you, bang, and close the door right before you have to get to that part. Just, you know what? TO, probably good for both of us to kind of, you know what I mean? Take some time, right? This is the reality because otherwise, look at the kind of mistakes that you can make. You can make incredible, incredible mistakes. Okay. And that's what happened. And thank God for who? For Mordecai. Mordecai kept his 2 feet on the ground through the whole story. It's very interesting. The Torah tells you, like, when it talks about Mordecai and not bowing down to Haman, they refer to like he did not bend and he did not bow. Do you know what I mean? Like there was no compromise. Like, this is where I am. This is my beliefs. I'm standing firm on my 2 feet. Like you really can admire those people with a certain kind of a confidence. Like they don't, do what everyone else does. Like when your kids are teenagers, right? And they're really good kids, but the summer's long and it was really boring and things aren't going the way they wanted them to go. And then they have this friend who isn't like the best influence, right? And then they call them up and they're like, you don't have to be such a neb and you should come and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And the kid is kind of feeling, and that's when you make, yeah, that's when you make mistakes. So the idea here is to kind of teach us, this is what you have to realize that when you're having these feelings and you're having these emotions, it's really hard. It's hard to recalibrate, but it's harder to keep making mistakes. Do you know what I mean? And Hashem is saying, look, you made a mistake. Like when Cain made that mistake, he said, I get it. You made a mistake. You're feeling bad. You're feeling this. Get yourself back up. Get yourself back up and move forward. Take it slow, reorientate. You know what I mean? And that's what, the idea is. Because if not, you're going to make mistakes. And that's an important part. So there was recently a story. It's like an absolutely crazy story. I heard it from Rabbi Joey Haber. I heard it from Rabbi Joey Haber, and what he said was it's a true story. It just happened recently. I think I said it in one of the classes, that these girls were going on a trip on a school, like on a bus, on a trip. It was girls from Kiryat Yoel. It's a very Hasidic community, and these girls were on this nice trip. And this one girl says, I'm smelling smoke. Like I'm smelling smoke from the bus. Like it's like a really, I don't know what's going on. And then she went over to the teacher and she said to the teacher, like, Mora, like, I'm smelling a lot of smoke. And the Mora starts going, you know what? You're right. I'm smelling smoke too. She goes up to the bus driver, and the bus driver is like, don't worry about it. Like, ladies, like, it's not a big deal. And the teacher goes, no, I'm responsible. And it is a big deal. It's not a big deal. Like, it happens all the time. I got to stay on my schedule. And she's like, excuse me, we're going to have to take this seriously. I'm the one responsible. What's the big deal? She said, I'm not going to ask you this again. Like, I hired you. You can blame it on me. We are stopping the bus immediately and we're all getting off. And this is a true story. It just happened recently. The girls got off the bus. There was like a McDonald's nearby. They were in the parking lot. They went to the McDonald's, and within 5 minutes, the bus blew up to smithereens. Like they said, it looked truly like a terrorist attack. Like the girls were so shaken, you can imagine. Like that was a trauma. The girls like looked at the bus. It was a complete trauma. They had to call Hatzalah. The whole thing, went off. But it was interesting how the teacher said, like, she really kept her composure. She had just heard a shiur from Rabbi Joey Haber. And Rabbi Joey Haber, unfortunately, just had his son, who just recently married with one baby, had a stroke at the age of 25. Can you imagine? The age of 25, he had a stroke. And he was saying, like, how do we get through all this craziness? Like, how can you stop yourself? How can you say, okay, I just want to be calm? So how do you do that? You have to say this. You have to say, you know what? First and foremost, God's in this picture. It's all coming from God. God's orchestrating this. God's in the picture. This challenge is from God. It has purpose. It has meaning. And God's here. He's not ever leaving. He's not leaving you alone in any of your challenges, no matter what they are. Okay? He's always going to stay with you. Right? So right? That's what you have to know. And you have to remember, like, there's hope, right? There's all kinds of hope. That's what God was trying to tell everybody. Stop it. There's hope. Moshe could come back tomorrow. Your timing is off. There's always hope. And then it's an interesting idea, a team. We need each other. You see somebody kind of losing it, or you see that, it's good. Like, you know what? I'm going to take charge in this little story. Like, let's both calm down. We'll talk a little later. Let's lower our voices. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, let's help each other, right? Under these circumstances. You see someone is getting flustered. You see things are going off the rail. Let's like work to help each other. You know what I'm saying? It's such an incredible story. Like I really found this whole idea so amazing. So whenever you feel like you're about to like the tripping up and you're feeling that like stop for a second and realize it's not a good time to be making decisions. Okay. Now I need to address the angst and the emotion and what's happening. Right? If you can recalibrate and self-regulate, that's amazing. But if you need to stop the conversation or leave the room, there's like an incredible chachma, an incredible genius and maturity in being able to just say, I'm not letting this go any further. I'm not prepared. I'm too flustered. I'm too impatient. I'm too angry. I'm too hungry. I'm too tired. I'm too this. Do you know what I mean? And have that like honest, I would call it self-awareness, because these mistakes that were made were huge and they changed the trajectory and the destiny of a lot. Do you know what I mean? So it's like just important. So you can make that mistake between you and one person, and you can make that mistake and it can impact so much. So I just wanted to share that with you. I just have to, I have like an appointment, so I just have to leave a little earlier than usual. But I love you all and appreciate that every single person is here. And I will send you the recording, okay? And hopefully see some of you on Tuesday. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
You are
Talk.
welcome.
Yeah.
All the best, everybody. Take care. Have a good day.